CCU Orlando and Aikens Counseling Center present The Authentic Spiritual Journey, a weekly show featuring real and practical spiritual conversations from diverse perspectives here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. Today, episode 4, I'm Awake, Now What? And now, your host, Reverend Cynthia Alice Anderson, and co-host, Frederick Cotto Lewis.
So welcome back. I'm Cynthia Alice. I'm here with my co-host,
Frederick Cotto Lewis.
We're glad you're joining us again for show 4. The title for show 4 is I'm Awake, Now What?
Now what?
We've been talking about spiritual awakening in the soul, and we want to just always go deeper. And as you know, especially if this is your first time listening, we want to invite you into our conversations. These are spiritual conversations where we are, of course, interacting with one another. Our producer also is here.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Dave Croft.
And Dave's a part of the discussion as well. So we know that in our stories, you're going to be hearing your own story. So we just invite you into that and are glad you're with us. Today is, again, I'm Awake, Now What?
And I just want to remind everyone that even before these conversations, we want to relax ourselves, breathe, and just get ready to open up and enjoy this authentic spiritual journey. Thank you.
And, as we talk about spiritual awakening, so often we have some euphoric idea about what awakening looks like and what living from the soul looks like. And when we read self-help books or see New Thought broadcasts or even just see people in authority that seem to, quote, have it going on spiritually, that we make up stories about what spiritual awakening is and maybe what it looks like. So we want to break it down for you today. Once you move into more spiritual awakening, now what? And we believe if you're listening to this show that you have a certain level of spiritual awakening, or you would not be listening to the show.
Or that you are experiencing the awakening of your spirit. And so I think to just really, like Alice said, to go into to see how that looks.
Yes.
And for me, when I think about how I look at it, I always look at stuff in real life meanings. So I like to see everyday things, and because I know that the everyday life also is connected with the spiritual life. Mm-hmm. So, in representation, running parallel, right? That's the way I look at it. They run parallel. So when I look at waking up, I look at what do I do when I wake up? Mm-hmm. Wake up early in the morning, sometimes 5:30 in the morning, getting ready to get up, moving, just wanting to wake up. First thing in the morning, I know I get up, take care of my little business. Wash.
Okay, TMI, overshare.
Overshare, I'm sorry. But I believe
that's authentic, right?
Hey,
I believe that's a human condition.
Come on.
Who doesn't have to do that?
You get up and do your business.
Yeah. And then you want to watch.
Check Instagram, right? And that's what you talk about.
Right.
Check social media to see who liked whatever you posted.
To see who liked what I was saying on the podcast, Authentic Spiritual Journey. Right. Get up.
You ain't right, man.
Wash my face, brush my teeth, and then go into some kind of spiritual work. Just sit up and kind of meditate. For me, I do walking out early in the morning into the yard or something, because I have a beautiful backyard, especially when the landscape and the yard man came and cut the grass. How blessed are we to have a yard man now? But just enjoying, just knowing that I'm connected when I wake up with spirit.
Yes.
And how my day is going to, planning out my day.
Right. And so that's basically what we're talking about today. He's saying it exactly right, which is our first point we're going to discuss today is spiritual awakening and how it looks. And it might be different than what you're thinking right now. Our second point we're going to be into today is the spiritual in the everyday. How do your daily routines, the way you wake up in the morning, the way you go to bed at night, how do we bring that spiritual life into every aspect of our day? And then the final point is setting your intention. Mm-hmm. We believe firmly that we are co-creators with God. So in setting our intention, we are establishing for ourselves an energetic pattern with which we want to walk through our day. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So number one, spiritual awakening and how it looks. I wanted to talk about this specifically because I see a lot of people on the spiritual journey be really feel inadequate if their lives don't seem to look the way others appear. In other words, if life doesn't seem to be going perfectly without any bad things happening, that then they're spiritual. And spiritual awakening really doesn't look like a perfect life.
Right.
Spiritual awakening is really about awakening to the good that God has for you in every moment. And there can be large moments of spiritual awakening. And I want to talk about what a few of those might look like.
Okay. For me, I know a large spiritual awakening was the moment when growing up in being a member of Baptist Church before I became a member of the Unity. But I know that was another spiritual awakening for me.
Yes.
Because what the sermons and the topic that they were so based on, it was like a topic of lack of who I was or wanted to represent, which is that God consciousness, that Christ in me. If I wasn't getting that, I felt like I wasn't getting that feeding or that I wasn't getting that food, because I find that me being connected to a church or a spiritual organization, I want to be fed, and I want to, if I'm not being fed spiritually, because we need that, just like I need 3 meals a day, snack and all that to feed my physical body.
Yes.
I need to, and that right there will help me to be not only spiritually awake, but spiritually nourished.
Yes.
To be able to go through these experiences, because
Exactly.
like you said, some of them are going to be really tough
Right.
and hard,
Yeah.
and then some of them are going to be like you can slide through it.
Yeah. So for those of us in recovery, we had moments of awakening where we realized the way we were doing life was not working anymore.
Exactly.
Right. So many people in my life, and myself included, although I am not in AA, I'm in a program called Al-Anon, which is for basically addicts addicted to people and not a substance. My addiction is people and maybe approval. So what we decide, though, is that the way life has been going is no longer working. And that is a moment of spiritual awakening.
Yes.
So awakening for me is about realizing there's something more to life than what I am currently experiencing. And so that moment of awareness is, in fact, a moment of spiritual awakening. And that can look and does, in fact, look very different person to person. But what I know is common is that you move from how you used to operate into a new way of operating. And that moment of recognition that I don't want to do life like this anymore is the moment of awakening.
Yes. And then once you are awake, here it is. Now it's like, okay, I'm awake. Now what I do?
Right. Now what do I do?
Now I want to see. I think I want to have my vision, my eyes open, and my focus on how am I going to show that I'm awake.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
See, because it's all right to be awake, but now, okay, when you wake up, now your day you have to have something to do.
Right.
Everybody has something to do, even if you're just sitting around playing video games. No point intended, but if you are playing video games, then that's probably what it's meant for you to do.
Yes.
Okay, so we're not mad at that.
Well, you
either.
know what? A spiritually awakened person can play video games. That's a great.
I know, because I know you play video
I
games.
love video games.
Yeah, you got one.
Actually,
in
my
particular.
favorite game was
Right.
Galaga. Yeah.
See,
But everything in moderation, So
All things in moderation.
yeah, budget time to play video games. It's just like budgeting money to go to the movies. It's as long as you're not taking away from your light bill.
So what?
Yeah, exactly.
What we talked about earlier is seeing spirit in all things.
Yes. So exactly. So when you are once you have the moment of awakening that I was talking about, where you're not doing life the way you used to, but you haven't fully moved into say living 100% from your soul.
Yes.
By the way, I don't know a single person
That-
doing only that, but we have, little moments of awakening. And so we're always looking to further wake up. I know this sounds funny, but every situation that comes to us is an opportunity for more awakening.
You know what came to me? That's so funny when you said that, further awakening, that throughout the day, because here it is, we wake up, we wash our face, brush our teeth, you go through all of the stuff, do your little meditation, whatever, or jog, run, work out, whatever you do when you wake up. But there's some people that also have to have their coffee, which will help them to.
Who are you talking about?
Yeah,
We're
I don't
not-
know what you're
I
talking
don't
about.
know.
No
Yeah.
point intended for anyone, because I like a little taste of coffee every now and then, but I'm not too much.
You too
into it.
crazy on coffee.
I know. I'm already hyped.
Don't-
so I
yeah,
don't need
he's hyped
that.
enough.
I'm awakened enough.
Yeah, you are awake.
So some people just need that extra
Yeah.
to like get them awake. I like that, because now I'm turning it over into a spiritual way. In a spiritual way, what would give you that in the spiritual?
Yes. Well, I think we're learning to listen to our soul, and that's what awakening is about. When you decide the way you have been doing life is no longer working and you want to do it a new way, that's beginning to listen to the soul's voice, the soul's guidance. So no matter what your religious affiliation, and I want to
Definitely.
remember to say this every show, you have a soul no matter what your prime faith may be.
Exactly.
And any religion worth being a part of will have you listening to that inner voice.
Definitely.
And so living from this place of spiritual awakening means we learn to tune in and listen to our soul. So daily, that's going to look different ways. As a matter of fact, it keeps coming to me to share the story. I'm not sure who this is for that's listening, or maybe it's for me. But several years ago, I was with my horse at the barn. For those of you listening, I'm a real lover of horses, and horses love me, and they've been my greatest teachers. They've been my greatest teachers about energy, because they're such sensitive beings. And I was having a really tough time, and it was a Saturday evening that I went to the barn, and it was late, and I was upset emotionally. I was in some personal turmoil. And so where I go when I need help and support is the horses, because they're always unconditional love, and they're always going to be a perfect mirror for me. They're not going to save me from myself. They're going to show me myself as a perfect mirror. And so as I went into the barn and I sat in my horse's stall, I sat down in the dirt, literally, and I had on my boots and my jeans and my hat, as I would normally wear to the barn, my Western shirt, my normal way of going there. And as I was sitting there praying and asking for guidance, my horse came over, took off my hat, put his mouth in the water, and dribbled it over my head. And it was, for me, a moment of awakening, because I was asking for guidance, and I felt like that water coming down was a moment of baptism.
Yes, that's what I got.
And it was like, I felt like it was straight from the universe, and so that moment where, it looked anything but spiritual. I was dirty. It was on the floor of a stall, and a stinky horse was putting water on my head. But that moment was a moment of spiritual awakening. So I wasn't all dolled up in front of a congregation.
Yes.
I wasn't trying to be impressive. It was at the moment when I was open to receiving a blessing that I got one. And I was open to receiving the blessing and the awakening because my way of doing it was no longer working. So those are moments of surrender. And that's, in my life experience, that's when awakening comes.
When I think about that, I like that you said it was in that moment when you was like, like almost like in your lowest.
I was in
Because
my
you
low
was
self.
on the
Yes.
ground. You was
Yes.
in a dirty stall.
Yes.
You was, and then who would have ever thought a horse dribbling water on you would have been spiritual? Most people would have been like, ew. But because of your perception of how you perceived it, and because of you being spiritually awakened and open to Spirit's way of showing itself through you and through your experiences, you were able to overcome that natural feeling of being like grossed out.
Yes.
Or what some people might say when you're going through it, like overwhelmed.
Yes. Yes.
We can say it that way.
Well, yeah.
So then what I see now is that in the lowest times, when we think that I can't go through this, I can't make it, I'm at my
Yes.
lowest of lows, there's nobody to help me, this situation is too big. That is actually when we're actually at the moment to where we can receive from Spirit that awakening.
Well, that's when you get out of your own way the most.
Absolutely.
Exactly. Well, because I keep saying, what I keep hearing is that the quickest way up is to go down.
Got to go down to go up.
Ooh.
Yes. And by the way, you're speaking very Jungian right now. If you've studied psychology, Jung says you have to descend before you can ascend.
Before you
Well,
can
it's like,
ascend.
we were talking about cleaning out your closets and all of that.
Oh,
and
yeah,
part
right.
of, coming to grips with, like, let's say weight loss. Sometimes
Yeah.
you have to no longer fit in those pants.
Yes.
And your choice is either to go buy new pants and admit defeat to the universe, and I'm just going to throw down on some Ben and Jerry's.
You talking to me.
Or you're like, okay, this is a wake up call. This is rock bottom. As
For
far
me,
as addiction to food or whatever.
Oh, right,
Yes.
right.
And so you make a change, and so sometimes you're never even in a place to be able to receive or hear that message,
Right.
until you find yourself at the bottom of a Ben and Jerry pint.
Yeah, right. Hello.
So this is seeing the spiritual in the everyday life.
There you go. Yeah.
Once, and I know that it's all about, because being spiritually awakened is having that, what we would call, I know for me, the third eye opening up
Yes.
to where you're no longer looking at things in the physical, but now I'm looking at it in the spiritual.
Yes.
Everything becomes spiritual.
Yes. Everything becomes spiritual.
Becomes
Right.
spiritual.
Yes.
Okay. And so when I look at everything as far as being spiritual, that right there it gives me a whole new awakening.
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
then I even look at, even in the bad moments, or what I call I always say the good, the bad, the ugly, and the indifferent.
Yeah.
Right? And I see God working in all of it. But in my past, before the awakening, thank God, I did not see it that way. I just thought, woe is me. This is really
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah.
But that's how you know. Because we want to know, I want to know if I'm spiritually awake or not. And this is how you will know that you're spiritually awake.
Yes.
Because knowing is like only half of the battle. It then goes into
Practice. Practice in the everyday. Yes.
the everyday.
Right. And so if you're listening right now to the podcast, what I know that you probably know, but if you're questioning it right now, you have had a spiritual awakening if you're walking around on the planet and you are seeking the divine in your life.
Yes.
Because that is the awakening.
That is
so
the awakening.
it doesn't mean you do life perfectly. It means you are attempting to do life consciously. It means you're
Consciously.
attempting to live from the center of your being, to live from this awakened consciousness. So, Frederick made a great point about the spiritual in the everyday. We look for, life is no longer getting up, going to work, and paying your taxes and your bills,
Exactly.
and then retiring and dying. That every day is an adventure on the journey.
Exactly.
And we are looking for spirit's interaction with us.
Ooh.
Love
that.
there was a great movie years ago that came out, and I remember when it came out, it was people were really excited about it. It was called What the Bleep Do We Know? And one of the one of the people interviewed was a chiropractor, and his name is Dr. Joe Dispenza. And since the movie, Dr. Joe is known worldwide for speaking and his writing, and he still maintains, by the way, his chiropractic practice. But one of the things he said in the movie was that he started every day with a powerful intention, and then asked to see God's activity in his life. And so at the beginning of every day, setting the intention, which we're going to get to more of that in a moment, but he was literally looking for signs of spirit as he went through the day. And so the sign of spirit for him might have been a feather on the ground, maybe there was something, or maybe it would have been something somebody said to him, but it was really seeking to see and recognize God's activity in his life and in the world in support of his intention.
And that's in every activity, every interaction, everything that you do. Like for me, I had to trust spirit, leaving from one job, going into another one.
Yes.
I had full-time bills, part-time pay. Nobody, for real, for a whole year. But thank God that this is where you learn to trust God, trust source, trust spirit. However, but during that time, I had to learn that the spirit had me on a journey, another part of my awakening. On that journey, and then learning how to just depend and trust. Like you said, that inner guidance. Because you have to. That's a part of the everyday. Because every day I wake up, I bring me into each experience.
Right. Wow. And you're speaking about something very important, and we touched on it, but I want to bring it out. It was so important. It hit me really strongly was, every day is an opportunity for awakening. Every moment is an opportunity. Every moment. Yeah, because what we believe is that the divine is everywhere. The divine is present in us. And even in situations where we are not necessarily seeing the divine, that we are trusting that as this is coming forward to us, that there is a spiritual learning, there is a spiritual activity at work that's bringing us into our good. For instance, right now, I'm just going to bring this up, that right now in politics, there are things that I find maddening, frightening, concerning on the human level.
We discussed this.
Yes. But on the spiritual level, what I see happening is more awakening as a result of the current leadership.
Because what I see as a human, because that's who I am, and that's what we all are, human. We're having a human experience. So in that human experience, I believe that in order to know what we don't want, or what we do want, we need to experience what we don't want.
Yes.
And I've learned that in my own personal life, exactly, because I didn't know what I really wanted out of life. Being a young man growing up, you just really don't know. When you're young, they ask you what you want to be, a fireman, a police, or whatever. That's what you say because you hear other kids saying it. But then when you get
we don't have a clue.
I know. And then when you get grown, you're like, oh my God, the list gets bigger and bigger.
You still haven't figured it out.
Yeah, right.
Exactly. Right. So it's a learn as you go.
It's a learn as you go model.
And not being scared to change in the middle of something. Come on now. Knowing that every action is a divine action.
Yes.
If spirit is calling me to go in another area, I mean, when you feel a calling, you know when something is pulling you to a place. And so when you're doing that, you not being afraid, not being either you're going to be faith led or fear led.
Yes.
One of the scriptures that I keep coming back to, and I'm not going to nail the actual verse or whatever, but it's the story of Moses, and
oh, that guy.
Well, that guy, that guy.
Yeah.
And one
big
of the
beard and everything. You like those guys, big beard.
Yeah, my people. One of the things I'm always drawn to is feeling like, when you feel abandoned or you feel like you're on your own, and I always come back to God did not lead us into the wilderness to starve.
Yes.
Amen.
Oh my God, that makes me want to
that's
cry.
powerful.
Yeah,
That's powerful.
God did not put me in this position. He has not abandoned me just so he could point a finger and say, "Man, you chump, haha." You know, there was only one Job in the entire Bible. There was one dude.
Yeah.
And even that's like a whole philosophical,
one dude.
like mind freak.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, we'll put a pin in that story and come back later. But God did not lead Moses into the wilderness so that the Israelites could just starve
just
and wander
perish
around
and
forever.
die.
Exactly. So
Exactly.
I anytime I'm feeling like in a really rough spot, I try to lean on that, and I try to share that with Shannon, and you know, sometimes I'm trying to convince myself as
yes.
I'm trying to convince her.
Yes.
You know, but God did not lead us into the wilderness to starve.
And here it is, the spiritual awakening part in that part is that knowing that God is in you.
Yes.
How can God abandon you when God is in you?
Right.
That's
Exactly.
like God abandoning itself.
It is. Yes.
So that can't happen. Just getting rid of those false illusions and those false
Yes,
stories, beliefs,
Yes.
what we call it,
Erroneous.
erroneous. No,
No.
we call it something else.
You'll come back to it. I don't know.
Yeah, I'll tell you in a minute. But it's getting rid of those false beliefs and those illusions, and then seeing the divine in everything.
Yes.
In everything, in every action, every decision, every choice, and just continuing to make better choices.
We'll return to your program in just a few moments, but first, we wanted to give a special word of thanks to our podcast partner, CCU Orlando, who has helped make this episode of the Authentic Spiritual Journey possible. Christ Church Unity is a welcoming community dedicated to transforming lives, celebrating diversity, and supporting soul growth. CCU Orlando is located at 771 Holden Avenue in Orlando, Florida, with Sunday services at 9 and 11 a.m. You can stream services live online, as well as learn more at christchurchunity.net. We'd also like to extend our thanks to our podcast partner, Aikens Counseling Center. Cassandra Aikens is a licensed mental health counselor dedicated to creating sacred space where clients can explore their own inner process in a safe, non-judgmental, and supportive environment. She works with individuals, couples, and groups who are seeking to live a more authentic life. Aikens Counseling Center is located in Winter Park, Florida, and can be found on the web at CassandraAikens.com. And now we return you to this week's episode of The Authentic Spiritual Journey.
The part we're speaking of when we're saying listening and trusting, again, we're talking about the soul. And
Yes.
my belief about the soul is that the soul contains your feelings, your thoughts, your beliefs, your ideas,
And your emotions.
and certainly your emotions, your sensations, and that we are what are called threefold beings. We are spirit, soul, and body. So, Dave, as you said, God can never abandon us because the one constant in our lives and in the world is the very Spirit of God. And that's always available to each one of us every moment of every day. The soul is our individual expression of that Spirit. So it's our understanding, it's our life experience, even our past life experience. If this is new to you, whoa, hold on, past lives, warning, past life discussion, that your soul even includes your past lives, and that the body then houses the soul and spirit, even though literally your soul and spirit are even larger than your body.
Oh,
but
yeah.
the body is to carry around and to support the spirit and
The
soul's
spirit.
work in the world. So
Yes.
that's what we believe about every individual, no matter where you're born or what your belief is or what race you are or what orientation you are or what country you may find yourself, that every person has these, is made up of these three elements. So it's these three main parts, but it's one unified whole of spirit, soul, and body. And the idea is the spirituality in the everyday is that as we awaken more to it, as we're going through life, this awakening moving us forward, that we trust the voice of our soul that's always there, always speaking to us. And our soul is always connected to God or
Connected
to
to
spirit,
the infinite.
to the infinite, but it's also connected to the here and now.
Exactly.
And so it's experiencing life from this third dimension realm, but also has the capacity to reach up into what one of my favorite authors, Charles Fillmore, called the fourth dimension realm, or we like to also call the Christ consciousness.
Yes.
That fourth dimension or Christ consciousness is then what informs the soul to then go out and do in life.
To perform.
Yes.
And
yes.
so that right there would bring it right into your everyday
Yes.
activity.
Yes.
And as we just continue to say, trust in that part. I know for me, that's a big part. Just trusting that everything that I'm doing throughout that day, every interaction, like for instance, I was at work speaking with someone, and then all of a sudden it was like, we're like building this relationship, and now we're talking.
Yeah.
And I know that this is another soul interacting with another soul.
Right. Right.
And maybe have some kind of connections in the past.
That's
in
right.
past lives or whatever. But now we're reconnecting that again. No matter how short, no matter how long, no matter how intense, no matter how unintense.
Yes.
It's still all that everyday interaction with spirit. I try to at least see spirit working through me out into the world in
Yes.
everything that I do.
Yes.
Everything.
Yes.
So, and that would cause me, how that would cause me to feel more spiritually awakened is because now it forces me to know that I play a very important role.
Yes, and once again, I heard you say something really important. I want to bring out, if you don't mind. You're kicking it today. What you said about the emotions, and emotions really are windows into the soul. And so positive connections, when those emotions come up, are telling us something.
Yes.
Also, negative emotions may be showing us places we need to heal.
Yes.
And what I see happening in culture today, again, this is how we're looking for the spiritual in every day.
Yes.
What we see in culture today is when somebody has a feeling, they look for someone to blame.
Yes.
Right? So I feel bad, so I'm looking for someone to blame. Or my particular group feels disenfranchised, so I'm going to blame the man,
Right.
whoever, whatever group you may find yourself in. And that's very easy to do when we can point to evidence in the here and now where certain groups have been mistreated. I mean, if you're black, if you're gay, if you're homeless, there's a lot of groups.
If you're white,
if you're
fat,
black. I mean, it's everybody.
Skinny.
Everybody can point to another group and say, you've done me wrong.
Yes.
Well, as true as that may be, right? As
Yes.
true as that may be, we are now responsible for our lives.
That's the key.
Right. So
this is becoming spiritually awakened. That's all I wanted to say.
No, you're right. This is becoming spiritually awakened when we begin to take responsibility for our lives and
Yes.
for the everyday interactions that we have. Our emotions are key in that because, we've been in a real kind of pop psychology culture, I would say, especially for the last 20 years, where our feelings are so important. And anybody who knows me personally knows, and so I want to share this. I started therapy when I was 15, and I'm 49, and there's only been a little break in there. So I believe strongly in therapeutic work.
Amen.
I believe strongly in that, but I don't believe all the wisdom is in the emotions. I think the emotions are keys into what needs to be healed.
Yes.
And I think they are keys into where we are healed and keys into, as you mentioned, is this an important connection for me? And this is just another way we're looking for the spiritual in the everyday.
I like what you said because the emotions are guides. They're
Guides,
for
yeah.
me,
Better word,
they're like
yeah.
guide. They're like a guidance. It's a guidance system.
Yes.
So it shows me, okay, I need to look at this because if I've gotten offended over something outside of me and say, well, why did that offend me?
Yes.
That means obviously I am attached to that.
That's right.
In some kind of way.
That's right.
Because if I wasn't attached, if I was detached, which is a very important part, if I was detached, then it could not affect me.
Right.
But because I'm affected emotionally, then that means I'm attached to it.
Right.
So then that spirit, that
it.
spirit telling me, okay, wake up. This is a sign right here. Wake up. So when you see those things in everyday life, as some of us, as we all do, we see them, but we choose. Here's where the choices come in, because we'll sometimes choose to ignore it.
Yes, we will. Denial we love denial.
I'm not talking about nobody personally. I'm just talking. This is me. I choose to deny it sometimes. And I have done that in the past. But now, because I feel responsible, because I'm awakened, I now understand that I have a part, a role to play.
Yes.
Yeah, the denial is thinking that the fat pants got smaller in the dryer. Right,
I have said that.
That's
before.
the denial. I just washed them.
I tell you that darn dryer.
Shrinker of clothes.
Yes.
Well, and there's also something that happens spiritually too when people start to get a little awakening. Then they take responsibility for things that are not theirs. You know,
exactly.
and that's also an important part of the journey and an important part of being a responsible soul, because if we're taking responsibility for everything happening in our world, that's not an appropriate understanding of our place in it. So
because now you're going to get burned out over that.
Over that, exactly.
And yeah, you're going to get burned out over that, and so you have to continue to focus on yourself.
But where's the balance in that though? Like for example, a certain football team out of our nation's capital has an arguably racial slur baked into the name of the team. So on one hand, that's horrific, and we should do something about it. On the other hand, you know that many spokespersons from that community have come out in favor of it. So where do I, as a straight white guy, where do I fall down on that? Am I allowed to be upset about that? Am I allowed to protest the football league, or should I just let the members of that community? I mean, you kind of feel what I'm saying? Like
yes,
how do you balance that?
Here it is, coming from living from within yourself. Living from your true self. Admonish the feeling. Don't deny yourself the feeling, because that's just an emotion. But not allowing that emotion to drag you so deep into that to where you lose the real focus.
Yeah. Right. And as we were saying, the emotions may be telling you something like maybe there is an injustice.
Yes.
Okay. So if there is an injustice, then you ask yourself, okay, is there something for me to do? And then listening for the soul's voice in that, because the truth is it will only change when straight white guys are mad about it.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So it's like, because if you're Native and if you're Native American and the, it happens to be, the Washington Redskins or something of that nature.
Watch your foot. Sorry.
If you are Native,
I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's all right. If you're Native and you see the Washington Redskins, of course that doesn't feel good, because your culture's been basically systematically annihilated, and now your culture is being used for a sports team.
Right.
So of course you don't like that. But the natives, as we know, were basically shipped off to reservations and are living in, it's like the third world, slap dab in the middle of America.
Right.
And so now many native cultures are at their most powerful today than they've been in years.
Yes.
But as long as it's just them mad about it, or just them trying to get justice around it, it won't happen, because they don't have the power of the culture behind them. So I think the thing I always use for myself personally, if I have a big feeling about it, then I'm responsible to at least check that out. Like one of the things, for instance, that that concerns me is not having water. Poor communities, other countries, That's a major problem in our world. All right. So, as a matter of fact, like next week, I'm meeting with somebody who's really working on getting clean water for communities all over the world. That really matters to me.
Yes.
So, because it matters to me, I'm at least checking out what can I do about it. So again, we want to be careful though, not to have the emotion, not to be overtaken by the emotion,
Exactly.
but seeking what might be ours to do and why the emotion is there.
There it is. Always coming back to what is my part?
Yeah.
What am I responsible for? And how can I make a difference?
Yeah, for me, it's really easy to get feeling overwhelmed with it. Whether
Exactly.
whether it's gay rights, whether it's
Sure.
Immigrant children concentration camps.
I mean,
on
my
now,
God.
right?
Right,
Yeah,
and
it's
so
crazy.
you get almost paralyzed with
Yeah.
anger. And I read Reddit, which is social media site, and the first thing we talked about, what the first thing we did in the morning. There was a period of time where the first thing I did in the morning was I opened up Reddit, the politics subreddit specifically.
Yes.
And within
I've
the
done that
first
too.
5 minutes of like da 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 da, good morning, and
Right.
I was
You were like,
incensed. I was so angry by the state of the world that I was just mad. I was just
Exactly.
angry all the time to the point where I had to just, you know what, the only thing I can do about it is I can write my representatives
Right.
and vote.
And vote. Exactly.
And but it became unhealthy for me, and I had to identify it
Yes.
in me.
So see now with the spiritually awakened, and then when you are spiritually awake, I'm awake, and now what's up? What? So now when you're spiritually awake, thank God for unity. What I've learned is now, okay, I am in this situation because I'm in this world, but not of this world. So here it is, when I'm in the world, I'm in that situation. What I want to do now is become the observer, observing the situation, because now I have to remove myself. I'm physically in that situation, but here it is. I'm like up here now.
It reminds me of Doctor Strange. Have you seen Doctor Strange?
Yes.
Yeah, and it's all about like mystical arts and everything. And it talks about the astral projection.
Yes.
Where you push your soul out of your physical body so you can kind of observe. That's what.
So
that
now
reminds me
that's
of.
exactly.
I'm a big Marvel.
That's
Well, don't you
exactly
wonder
it.
too, then who's observing the observer?
Exactly.
What?
Bam. So, but now here it is, because I am able to do that now because I'm spiritually awakened. I'm able
You can
to
do that.
withdraw myself
Exactly.
away from that, so I can observe this thing from a further view and from a higher perception.
Right. Again, this is coming to me. It's going to sound like a tangent, but after we brought up the native stuff and all we were talking about, because when Fred and I were meeting about this particular show, we were talking about how things show up in our path every day and how we want to pay attention to those things.
Yes.
And when you brought up the football team, for some reason it reminded me. There's a great book that. I've used, and it's about animal medicine. And for those of you that's new to, this is a Native American teaching and idea that every animal that comes across your path, every animal in general has a specific medicine, which just means it has a specific, in Jungian terms, I guess it would be archetype. That each animal has a certain archetypal reality. And so as you experience it, there might be a special message for you.
Yes.
So as we brought up Native Americans, I want to bring that because on my particular spiritual journey, animal medicine has been really important. And as we were speaking earlier, it was like, if we're asking for guidance about something and all of a sudden a hawk crosses your path, this is important. The hawk might be telling you to rise higher, to come above, your daily grind, and to expand your vision, for instance. And so today, we had talked about that the other day, and then on the way here, we saw two hawks. And I said, "Oh, this is a good sign for us." So I didn't want to let this episode end before I mention that. And I want to mention the author who's particularly good. His name is Ted Andrews. Ted Andrews, and the book is called Animal Speak. And there's also another one called Animal Wise that even goes into the insect and plant world as well. So anyway, I wanted to mention that.
I like that you moved right into to the last point, and
Yes.
that we've already been touching on it actually, and
Yes.
it's all about setting your intention.
Yes.
You have to set your intention each day, each moment when you awake, because even as you become more and more spiritually awakened, each and every experience brings us more and more awakenings. We want to set the intention of what am I intending to bring? How do I play out in this role? Yeah, it's a bad situations going on in this world. Yes, it is. It's a lot of injustices, but I want to be the bringer of light.
Yes. Yeah.
How do I do that? Setting my intentions to make a difference. Reaching out to every individual. What I always say, each one teach one.
Each one teach one.
Each one teach one. And that's how we do it. I'm thinking, it's like, oh, I want my world to change. I want my world to change. But you know what? When the change happens on the inside of you, then you are changing the world.
Yes, yes. And so setting your intention, as we talk about it, really means, what is my highest spiritual idea for today?
Yes.
What is my highest spiritual idea
For today.
that's coming through me? Not what do I want everybody else to do and be?
No.
What am I to do and be today? And then setting that intention. And then, as I said, Dr. Joe Dispenza, as he talked about it, is how am I working with Spirit now throughout the day? How do I see God's activity
Yes.
in my life and in the world? And I've never gone a day without knowing that when that was my intention to see it.
That's because you spiritually awakened, honey. So,
On a good day.
This
On
is
a
what
good day.
every day. Sometimes we're a little more, just like real life, we're a little more tired than other days. You know,
Yes.
we do get wore out.
Yeah.
And so that's when we have to go to someone that you know that is able to encourage you
Yes, yes,
and to lift you up.
yes.
And I'm so glad.
And you always do that for me.
I'm
Thank
so
you.
glad I have my sister here and my brother Dave
Yes.
now, because Dave, you really bring a lot. Thank you. So
You're most welcome.
you're encouraging also. So I love that about setting your intention. You really, I love Dr. Dispenza.
Dr. Joe Dispenza.
Dr. Joe
so
Dispenza.
Just to wrap up today, we just want to make sure that you always know that we're grateful for you listening, and our
Definitely.
prayer always is that our experience is helpful to you, that you connect with it, because we know it's also your experience.
Yes.
So we want to just recap what we spoke about today, which is just don't judge your own awakening. Just continue to wake up to the good that the universe has for you, and not to judge how it looks, but realize every moment is a
Every moment.
continued opportunity for awakening. And then we want to look for the spiritual in the everyday. In our interactions, on billboards, and in our conversations, realizing everything that comes to us is a gift from above, whether it looks like it or not. And then finally to set our intentions so
set
that
your
every
intentions.
morning we get up to bring about a new day, that we are doing our part by setting a powerful intention.
Yes.
Yeah, and if you're driving and didn't catch some of those names or some of the books, just as a reminder, we'll have links to those in our show notes. This is episode 004.
Thank you for joining us. Many blessings,
For joining
friends.
us. Have a good one.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of The Authentic Spiritual Journey, presented by CCU Orlando and Aikens Counseling Center here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. This channel is made possible through the continued support of our angel patrons, Dove Borland, Peter Gibson and Paul Caswell, and Angela Martinez, as well as our partner patrons, CCU Orlando and Cassandra Aikens. If you would like to help be a part of bringing shows like this and other programs to the channel, please consider becoming a patron. For patron information, episode show notes, and details about our other shows on the channel, head over to experienceofthesoul.com. And if you enjoyed this program, you can help spread the word by leaving a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, or the podcast platform of your choice. The Authentic Spiritual Journey is copyright 2018, Cynthia Alice Anderson, all rights reserved. Our theme music is composed by Shannon Croft and is used with permission. The Experience of the Soul podcast channel is a production of 818 Studios.